Hello, everybody. Kathy here. I'm still in Tokyo, and the view from my hotel room is quite incredible. So, let me share it with you if I flip you around real quick. There you go. She's looking a little bit hazy, but still incredible. All right, let me set you up back up here. And today I wanted to chat with you about the truth of being a global citizen. I very much consider myself a global citizen. Maybe a few of you who are watching this video right now also believe that they are a global citizen, but it might mean very different things to different people. And I know that majority of the people who know me, they know me as the girl who makes people tax-free, which is very much the truth, but also not everybody kind of knows how I ended up doing what I do today, so this ties in with my personal story and how I got here. So, for me, being a global citizen came through my natural course of my life, I would say. I was raised very multicultural. In my household, I grew up speaking 3 different languages, and I am considered what you call a third culture kid. There might be a few of you third culture kid also watching this. What it means is basically that you grow up in a different culture to the culture where your parents grew up from, and this was the case for me. So growing up, I had this whole identity issue, I would say, around where do I belong? What am I supposed to be doing? What cultural festivities do we actually celebrate? All this kind of questions that pop up, especially when people ask you, where are you from? Like, legitimately, still to this day and age, I struggle to answer that question because I don't feel like I truly belong to one country or the other. I'm kind of a mix of different cultures and countries. So it's always been very hard for me to put my mind around that question. And I also have close friends who are very clear where they're from. Like if you ask them where are you from, they can tell you very clearly, oh, I'm British, I grew up in this tiny home, tiny town, my grandfather grew up in the same tiny home. So they don't even have to think about it. Whereas for me, like I've always had such a hard time with answering the question. And the funny thing about this is that in my own family, immediate family, when we go out or nowadays when we are on holidays together and we meet, strangers from that country, we go to a restaurant or whatever, and they ask us, oh, where are you from? Different people in our immediate family will give different answers depending on, I guess, what they identify as mostly at that time. So it's kind of funny, that whole construct of where are you from when you don't actually really feel like you belong somewhere. And I feel that across, my whole childhood, growing up as a teenager, I always had that uncertainty about me. And I didn't really know, like, how should I deal with this? And what should I do about this? And how is this going to be resolved almost? And I started to think and believe that actually I didn't have to choose one or the other. I got to integrate all of them into my life and pick the best from each and every single culture that I was tied to and pick the best out of it. So, whether it was like the cuisine from a certain culture that I really liked, or whether it was the way that the system worked that I really liked, I drew out the benefits and what was working best from each and one of them. And I said, I'm in the luckiest position where I don't have to choose, first of all. I get to have it all, and I get to have the best of every single one that I decide that I want to. And then I kind of started playing around with the idea, what would have happened if I would have grown up in different parts of the world, What would my economic status be in this day and age if I would have grown up in this different place where my grandparents were from? What would have happened if I grew up in this other place, where my other side of the family comes from? And I kind of started playing around with these different scenarios. And what I found out is that I could still kind of access those different cultures, especially through the financial system. I'm talking about being able to tap into the banking system, for example, in one country because I hold the passport and I am a citizen of that country. And then I notice, well, but this other country over here actually has lower tax rates than that country over there. So, had I grown up over there, I would have been taxed way less than if I was over there. So I kind of started making up these mind games in my mind of how my life would look like, also from an economic perspective, because on top of everything, obviously, I come from an immigrant family. So my grandparents immigrated to another country in order to give my parents a better future. So that was always kind of tied in my mind, like, okay, people have moved around to give their families a better future and in the next generations a better future. So that's why I also always had that financial system in my mind and what benefits we could draw from the different system. And that was kind of always a weird thing to be thinking about when you're growing up, and especially like I guess as a teenager and then going to university. But it's always something that in my mind I was thinking about, because the question of where are you from always comes up, especially if you start traveling a lot, if you start moving around a lot. The first question that people normally ask is, where are you from? It's not an uncommon question. So it's no wonder that that keeps coming back up into your mind. And that was naturally what kind of led me to be super interested in international business, international finance law, and eventually I landed into taxation. And that whole topic of taxation just blew my mind. It blew my mind that, had you grown up in the UAE, you would have never had to pay any personal income taxes, as opposed to if you were growing up in France, you would have almost have to give away 40% of your effective income. That just seemed crazy to me. So I started really digging into it and like, how is this even possible? How can countries be so different from one place to the other place? And then as well, I tend to be very positive minded, I would say. And that's why I would always focus on, like, well, what's the best case scenario that one can build with having access to various different systems? And how can you actually get access to those various different systems so that we can get the best of it all? And that's how this whole topic ended up going into second residencies, second citizenships. And don't make a mistake, while I was growing up very multicultural, I still was raised on one passport. Like, I was actually having to do it myself later on in life to go back and apply for my citizenships through Ancestry. So I very much do what I preach. I have done it myself as well. I wasn't just super lucky and my parents sorted it all out for me and I was just handed over a couple of passports. No, I had to go through the whole process myself. So I went through that whole journey of, applying for my multiple citizenships. And then I saw all the doors that got opened up by having multiple citizenships, like the actual legal documents that say that you belong to this country, so to speak, even though, I have passports where I've never actually lived. So that's also another kind of funny story to think about. But those passports, having them, it also showed me a real life example of what people don't actually think about. I think a lot of people know nowadays, especially if you're on this channel, that, oh yeah, you should be globally diversified. Like, it's a good strategy to put into place, to put into your life. It would be a good idea to have multiple citizenships. But what people don't think about is like everyday life decisions, everyday life choices that you get to have. And normally it's you actually get more choices to choose from. I've seen it, there's scholarships out there that you can apply for only if you are European citizen. So then if you do have a European passport, that might open up a whole new career path potentially, especially if you have kids, think about that. I've also seen it obviously with visa solutions. Certain visas are only available to certain nationalities. So if you do have happen to have a second passport from that nationality that is actually on the list of nationalities that can apply for this specific visa, whatever you're looking for, um, then you get to have a specific visa. I'm in Japan right now, for example. They have a digital nomad visa here in Japan. I think it's a list of 49 countries, 46 countries, and only the people on that list are able to actually get the digital nomad visa in Japan. But if your country isn't on that list, then you just simply can't qualify for that digital nomad visa. But if you happen to have a second citizenship that have made it on that list, you get access to that digital nomad visa for 6 months in Japan. So these are the kind of everyday kind of choices that you get to make, and that just simply a second citizenship opens up so many different doors. This is more about like mobility, I would say, global mobility. How mobile can you be? How much can you move around freely from one place to the next place without necessarily having to go into super complicated visa processes? Because that's also the other side of the coin. Is like, well, there's people who can't have multiple citizenships. You know, there's countries who ban having multiple citizenships, or you need to give up one passport before you get another one, kind of thing. But even in that case, I always tell people you're still able to globally diversify through second residencies, which would just simply be long-term visas or any sort of visas. That's still possible for you, even though you can't maybe have a second passport. And specifically, financial diversification like that is normally open to so many people around the world. You know, you can't just simply be on your couch and open up a new bank account somewhere else. That is very much possible. I know you know, US citizens sometimes struggle with that, but it's open to a lot of people. You can still find diversified bank accounts that still will allow you to do that. And as I said, you can still tap into different financial markets, whether that entails opening up a business overseas in a country that will give you better business opportunities, better business tax rates. That's also a possibility. You might even find a place where you can get better credit cards from that your old home country didn't give you at all. So this is kind of, for me, how this all ties into being a global citizen. The other side of it is as well, you have to deal with a lot more bureaucracy, because that's just kind of how governments still run in this day and age. You need to keep in mind legalities, you know, what you are allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. You need to remember things on a practical level, like on which passport did you enter which country. But it's manageable, I would say. And I would definitely say that the benefits of being a global citizen by having multiple passports far outweigh the negatives. You can deal with the sort of negatives of remembering what sort of passports you use for what, or even, you know, when you do bank account openings or whatnot, you need to go through KYC processes, and you kind of need to remember which passport you used for what financial tool there is out there. But again, that's all manageable. It's simply all about having more options available for you. And remember that this isn't just a solution that might work for you. This is a solution, especially like second citizenships. And also, stepping into this whole global citizenship concept is something that you can pass on to your future kids and even sometimes your grandkids. You know, some of you might have European grandparents that came from Italy, and that way you were able to secure a European citizenship. So it's something that can really be passed on to future generations and doesn't just simply benefit you. And it opens up so many different doors that you might not even have thought about. Like the thing with the scholarship, you might have not even thought about that. That isn't a possibility. You might not have even thought about that there is other stuff available out there where you see, oh, Italians get this benefit, and now I get to move easier to Panama, for example. That's double treaty that Panama and Italy have, which gives Italians so quickly and easily Panamanian permanent residency. So that's also something that is quite unique, that some countries have had really good relationships in the past and still carry forward treaties that they have in between where both nationalities get to benefit from their close ties. So, again, this is kind of what this whole global citizenship, being a global citizen, means to me. It's just opening up more doors and taking the best of what each country has to offer. Obviously, different countries have, negatives and benefits, but I definitely choose to focus on the benefits and more in my world on the financial aspects of like how can I take things out here that will help my economic situation and the economic situation of my close family, my loved ones, and the future generations. So I hope this makes sense. I know I went on a little bit of a ramble there with my whole history, my upbringing as a third culture kid, not knowing where I kind of belong, but then making the best out of that scenario that I was like, no, let's just embrace this whole mix of everything that is in the pot and take out the best of each and every culture that I kind of belong to. And let's just maximize the benefits of every pot that I get to put my hand in, if you want to put it that way. That's all I wanted to share with you today, and would love to hear your thoughts on it. Would love to hear if there's other third culture kid in here, other global citizens that are on this journey of, being more open-minded, being on this journey of traveling to different countries, figuring out new cultures, and taking the best of every culture that they get to experience, because that's super exciting. Thank you so much for being here today, and I'll see you next time.